another episode of Garden to Table with Rose. So, finally we have a dry, semi-warm, sunny day. It is the end of April, and today I am planting a cherry tree. I have a bare root tree. It's a semi-dwarf tree, and so it should get 12 to 15 feet. However, I plan to try to keep it pruned back. I don't really want them more than 10 feet because I don't want to have to climb too tall a ladder. So today we're talking about planting trees. So before we begin, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so that you will get alerts whenever a new video comes out. And there's a new video every Wednesday. And this is Stella. For whatever reason, she wants to be in the video today, and she's the shy one. All right, so let's talk about trees. I have ordered several dwarf and a couple of semi-dwarf trees for my backyard garden. And actually, I am planting several on the side of my house as well. One idea that I've recently come up with is to try to use these trees as a privacy barrier between me and the neighbors, because the houses are fairly close together, given that these are, about half-acre plots. So one of the ideas I've come up with is to try to use these trees as some kind of privacy barrier, since I'm planting them anyway. We are very close together. This is a subdivision. I'm in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Zone 6A, for those of you who don't know, and my lot is a little under half an acre. That includes the house, the whole lot. So I don't have a lot of space to garden, but for city living, for suburban living, it's pretty good. So I decided to plant my semi-dwarf cherry tree right here. It's between a bed that I have that pretty much I just do onions and brassicas in. It's a small bed that's, I don't know how big it is, maybe 8 by 15 or 20 feet. Yeah, about 8 by 20 feet. And then on this side I have my grape and berry vines that I've set up. And so right in the middle, I thought, it would grow above the fence and give me some privacy from the neighbor who's right behind me. Awesome. So in terms of supplies, you don't need much to plant a tree. That's the awesome part. Now, I have this bare root tree here. I don't know how old this one is. This one is pretty big, so it may be a couple of years old. I'm not sure. But I order most of my trees from Stark Brothers, starkbros.com. It's a nursery that's in Missouri, and they have fantastic customer service, let me tell you. They may be a little pricier than some others, or maybe local ones. I don't really utilize local nurseries. I just kind of order my stuff online. So this is one of the trees that I ordered in the fall or winter of last year. You have to order these things well in advance to reserve yours. And so this one in particular is a Stark Gold Sweet Cherry Semi-Dwarf. So that means that these are going to be golden cherries, which are pretty unique. I have not seen golden, no, don't bite it. I have not seen golden cherries in the grocery store or at a farmer's market. So this is going to be unique. So, move. Bye. So now the thing is, when you plant bare root trees, it takes them a little bit longer, obviously, to grow and bloom, come into flower and all that good stuff. So it'll be 2-3 years before I actually get any fruit. But it's a lot cheaper to buy bare root trees. And even buying bare roots, I mean, these trees are like at least $30, $40 a piece. So it's not cheap, especially if you're buying like a dozen trees, which I did. And they prune their roots really nicely, so I'm really happy about that. What you do when you get your trees delivered to your doorstep in a cardboard box, usually they have some wet newspaper or something around the roots to kind of keep it moist. But ideally you would plant it right away, but usually it's a couple of days later for me. So these have been sitting a couple of days. I soak my bare root trees in a bucket of water, you know, just room temperature water, for at least a couple of hours. You don't want to soak them for too long. You don't want to do it for a day or two. That's just what I read. I don't know why, but you don't want to soak them for too long, but just enough to kind of rehydrate them. So soak them for at least 2 hours, and then you're good to go. All right, so in addition to my tree, which I have in my bucket of water, and by the way, you're going to use that water at the end to kind of water it in. So, you know, waste not, want not. So I also have a bag of compost because once I plant the tree, I like to, you know, put about a half a bag of my compost. This is 0.75 cubic feet. That's how they come around here. You know, you can buy it in the bag. It's not too expensive, maybe a couple of bucks. So I put about half a bag just around the top so that when it's watered, when it rains, there's some nutrients that go down in the soil. I do not amend my hole with anything just because from all the different sources I've read, that will discourage the roots from spreading out and searching for nutrients in the soil if all of the nutrients are, you know, kind of close to the root ball. And so the thing you're going for the first year or two is to build as strong a root system as you can for your tree so that it is hearty and it survives a lot of different things. So in addition to that, I have 3 huskies, and so I have to protect everything that I plant to keep them from digging. And excuse the little chihuahua in the back, the neighbor's dog. It barks a lot. Anyway, and they always seem to let their dogs out whenever I'm making a video, so it's hard to get around it. That's one of the downsides of living in a subdivision. Anyway, so I usually just use these garden fence posts. I put a couple of them on the perimeter of my trees, and then I wrap some kind of fencing, plastic fencing. I have this. It doesn't need to be sturdy. My dogs don't really like messing with fencing, so they'll typically leave it alone if I wrap something around it. So I kind of make a circle around the tree once I plant it to keep them out of it. Don't want them to dig it up. And then I put a little bit of protector on the bottom of the tree at the base. I use these. You could also use a tape kind of thing, whichever one you want. These are also helpful just for lawn mowing and weed whacking. You don't want to cut into the bark of your tree. That is not a good idea. So something to protect it, especially the first couple of years until it gets, you know, big and well established. You want to kind of baby it a bit. So, and then you need a shovel and a hammer to hammer in your posts. And that is literally it. Trees, I tell you, are one of the easiest things to plant because it's really like you just plant it, water it, and you're good to go. I also usually will put, and I didn't bring one with me, but I have these weed barrier tree circles. It's basically the black weed barrier material, but these are cut out into circles and they have a slit on them so you can put it around the base of the tree. I like to put, after I put the compost down, I put that on top, and then I'm gonna put a few yard stakes in there, lawn stakes, to hold that down. So that just keeps weeds away from the base of the tree. I don't want weeds. You could also use mulch if you want to. I use the weed barrier circles, so I don't mulch it. That's good enough for me. And then of course I label my trees. These come with labels. They always recommend you take these off so it doesn't gird the tree as it grows. It's pretty flimsy plastic, so I leave it on. And these, so I make a second one that I label in case the first one gets lost, because for me to remember what tree is what, if it's not blooming or has fruit on it, nope, that's not gonna happen. So I make a second one and then I hang it on the outside of the fencing, just so I can be doubly sure I know what's planted there. So that's what we're doing today. Hopefully this is a relatively short video. Basically, you're gonna dig a hole wherever you choose. I'm digging my hole right here. The nice thing is that it rained all day yesterday, so the ground is pretty soft. So if you wanna dig a hole that's where your tree can fit in up into usually right up under this joint, You see how this is here? This is the rootstock, and basically they grafted the cherry tree onto a rootstock that is probably disease resistant, great for my climate, and that'll also prevent it from growing too tall. So that's how you get a dwarf or a semi-dwarf tree. They graft the actual fruit tree onto a different rootstock, which doesn't allow it, I guess, to grow too tall. So you always want this bulb, this bulge above your soil. A couple of inches is good. So I'm probably going to plant it, you know, up until about here, down in the ground. So there's no exact science here. Just dig your hole. Every so often stop, put this down in the hole until you can see about this much, you know, 2 inches or so down from that bulb. That's how far you need to dig, pretty much. So that's all I'm going to do. You want the circle to be, you know, big enough so your roots can lay out, you know, so you can spread them out as much as you can, you know. So, you know, you with something like this, I'm probably going to want a circle that's about 2 feet wide, okay, and maybe a foot deep, or a little bit more than that, 12 to 16 inches deep. All right, so that's what I'm going to do next, and I shall be back. It's level with the grass, and then like I said, I'm going to water it in. I'm going to put my weed barrier on top of it, my little plastic, I don't even know what you call that, tree protector around it, my fencing, label it, and I'm done. And I will show you that, and then we'll be back for the finished product. Now the tree is planted. I've topped it off with my compost. Tap it down with your foot. Oh, you want to compact it a little bit. I have my handy dandy weed barrier tree skirt, which I ordered these online. I think I went through Walmart, and it was like a pack of 25 of them. I can't remember how much it cost. It wasn't super expensive though. Might have been 50 some dollars for 25 of them. So a couple of dollars a piece. This should help keep weeds out of your, close to the base of your tree, and you don't want that. You could also use mulch, straw, whatever you want. But I like these because these are a clear barrier, and I don't use mulch on top of them. So we're just putting that around there like so. And then I have a couple of yard stakes that I like to stick in, keep it from blowing away. Okay, now I've done that, I put my little tree protector around the base. I don't know what these are called. I'm pretty sure tree protector isn't the official name, but that's just what I call them. You can cut these to size. They come in, you know, like 2-3 foot lengths, and you can cut them to size. So this is one I had left over. I've already cut it from a different tree. This is a pretty good size. And actually I don't need to open it up because doesn't have any branching. So I'm just gonna gently put it over it. Yes. Oh, wait. Let me pull this up off for now because I need to relabel this tree. This is, and I want to remember what it is, Stark Gold Sweet Cherry Semi-Dwarf. Golden cherries. Let me sit that there. Okay. So next I put in a couple, two, you only need two, but you can put three if you like, of these gardening stakes. You know, they're pretty cheap from whatever home store you use. I just put them around the perimeter so that I can put some fencing around it to keep the dogs from digging it up. These are probably 3 feet tall. They're not very tall. You can use whatever height you want though. You got bigger ones, go for it. And for me, I don't need a super tight barrier because my dogs generally don't like digging where there's fencing in general. Wire fencing, they definitely won't dig. Plastic, sometimes they'll try to slide under it, but with the trees, I found that they just kind of leave them alone as long as I have them circled off with the fencing. So that's what I'm doing with the tree. And you know, if you are planting trees in an open space or a big field, you live out in the country, you probably want to stake your tree. Now this is my backyard, so it is fenced all the way around with a 6-foot privacy fence, so I don't get a lot of wind in the yard. So I have not staked these. The ones in the front, I don't have a fence in the front, so I planted trees in the front yard, and those I did stake because there's no wind break or wind barrier. For my staking, really, you know, doing it the most practical way, you could just use a big stick, you know, a stake. I use these, again, for now, you know, when it gets taller. I probably won't need this stake after 2 years, so I'll take it out once it gets fully established. But I pretty much just put this near the tree and then used plant tie plastic, which is like this stretchy green plastic that's to tie different plants to stakes to, and it's flexible so that you know you don't gird your plants and trees. So that's all I did in terms of staking. One of these and tie it to it. Alright. One more stake here. See if this fencing fits. This is a leftover piece of fencing. I don't know if it's big enough. I have more, but I'd rather use this up if I can. Come on. Will it fit? Yes. I'm gonna make it fit. That's good enough for now. Like I said, I'm only gonna leave this up till they're pretty well established. Once they're actual, you know, trees that have a little height, the dogs won't bother them much other than to mark them, but they definitely won't dig them up. So this is just kind of for the first year or so, year or two. So this is just barely enough. What I'm going to do now is zip tie this in together to keep it to keep it in a circle. So yeah, I'm going to zip tie it together, and then I've already watered it in with the bucket of water that I soaked the bare root tree in, and that is really it. This is one of the easiest things you can do in your garden or yard, is to plant bare root trees. I mean, compared to some of the other things I'm growing, this is like easy peasy. So what I will do is make sure this gets watered every week, at least an inch of water. If it doesn't rain, I will come out and water it. An inch of water, I mean, these things, I don't do an exact science on them. Pretty much, I'm gonna just fill a 5-gallon bucket and slowly pour it around the perimeter of this tree. That should be more than enough. I will not set up irrigation to my trees because there are so many and they're scattered all over the yard, that would be almost impossible for me to do on the scale that I'm planting. I am setting up drip irrigation, however, to my berry bush garden and my vegetable garden. So I'll probably do a video on that at some point, just a tour of that. But for these, I'll be watering by hand when necessary. Trees are pretty, fruit trees, I mean, until they, I guess, come into flower and fruit, are pretty low maintenance. I think maybe in the fall, if needed, I'll come back out and maybe top it off with either more compost or maybe a little bit of fertilizer for through the winter, to take it through the winter. But that's pretty much it. I'm trying to establish the roots. That's the only goal for the first year or two even. And so once it comes into bloom and things get interesting, then, you know, I'll make some more videos on things like pruning it into the appropriate shape and, you know, a spraying program, because I like beautiful blemish free fruit. So for me, I am going to spray. Also, you know, then you're going to need bird netting at some point once things start to fruit, unless you want to give all of your harvest away to wildlife, which I do not. I work too hard for this, so I want to eat my own cherries. So that's it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Gardens Table with Rose, and it's nice that this was a fairly short video, I think. So for me, that's an accomplishment, because I tend to ramble and talk and talk and talk. All right, so thank you, and please join me for the next video. I shall see you around.